system for customers, but then they work with Quest IT. So Quest IT is working with developers to maintain our own federation services, so developers can log on to the cloud using their AD credentials. Quest IT is maintaining a System Center Operations Manager to monitor our service in the cloud. And more importantly, Quest IT is actually sharing their practices, something that they've been doing for years, running the IT with developers, with engineers who, frankly, are not used to that, and they're used to just delivering the code, shipping it somewhere elsewhere. So it's been a learning exercise, and it's been very successful from IT perspective. We didn't overburden them initially when it was hard to predict what we actually needed, and now we work with them, and our own IT is helping us actually delivering something that's core to Quest business, serving our customers. So ironically, the cloud actually made IT at Quest more important rather than less important, and is helping us serve our customers and start deliver cloud services for IT professionals.
And I think that's an important concept, is that cloud computing really is an opportunity for IT shops to be able to serve their internal customers in a new and different way. And so it now gives you a broader spectrum of solutions that you can offer. And it doesn't, even though it might start out as a side project, ultimately it needs to be brought into the normal support processes. And that's why the business still very much needs the IT professional in supporting that. So when did you guys decide to make the shift and to start on developing this product?
So we've been kind of in the research phase, probably starting 2008. We started talking to customers, talking to system integrators, our partners, then started research, looking at the opportunities and then on the platforms. The actual development started May last year, so a year ago, and within a year we've migrated two of our flagship applications. So these are not just some kind of utilities, tools. These are really flagship applications.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really underscores the agility and the ability to bring something completely new to market in a very quick time frame. And I think it's super impressive that you guys decided to do that with some flagship products. So we wish you great luck.
Thanks, Diane.
Great. Thanks, Dimitri. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Windows Azure Platform and how to go about buying it. So the thing that you hear most often in the market today is consumption-based models. It's the pay-as-you-go or grow. It's the lowest barrier to entry. People don't have to make an upfront commitment, especially if you don't know ultimately what it is that you're going to use. It's really optimized for cloud elasticity. So again, if you want to be able to peak on demand, it's the perfect model for you. There's also the notion of a subscription or a time-based commitment. In return for giving us the opportunity to do a little bit of capacity planning, we can turn around and give you the opportunity to get a pretty substantial discount in terms of what the cost of the Windows Azure platform is. And then for those of you that work for larger companies that might have enterprise or volume licensing agreements with Microsoft, in the not too distant future, we'll be integrating Windows Azure with those traditional procurement vehicles to make it easy for your organization to be able to add Windows Azure without having to scale up or set up a bunch of new procurement processes. So in just a minute, I'll go into the details of the consumption-based pricing. I'll also talk to you a little bit about some of our promotional offers that are in the market today, as well as some of our partner-based discounts and some special offers regarding development. So Windows Azure Platform is comprised of three basic services. There's Windows Azure itself, which you can think about as really compute and storage at its fundamental level. Compute is charged on an hourly basis per service or per instance hour. The 12 cents an hour is based on what we call our small instance size. In just a second, I'll talk to you about the fact that we do actually have variable instance sizes. It's important to note in a Windows Azure construct that a compute hour is actually charged when the compute instance is allocated to you, the customer. So because it's at that point in time, we can't actually sell that time or that instance to another customer. And that's different than some of the other platforms that are on the market, where they might be giving you more of a shared tenancy, where you're actually sharing an instance with many other customers. You might pay differently, but also your performance is going to vary. So it's important to understand here that in this case, you're actually getting an entire VM allocated to you. We also have storage. So storage is charged on a per gigabyte basis, 15 cents per gigabyte per month. We also have the notion of a storage transaction charge. We charge that on a penny per 10,000 transactions. You might ask, why do you have both? And gee, wouldn't it be easier if we just charged it all on a per gigabyte basis? We actually looked at that, but I think one of the interesting things about doing cloud-based deployments is that any of the cloud providers have to think about what the constraints are relative to what an application is actually going to consume in terms of infrastructure and resources. And storage is one of those ones that there are really two different things that can be consumed. One is the actual disk space. That's pretty easy to get your brain around. But there's also the access of that storage over time. So you could foresee a situation where somebody could store just a very, very little bit of storage on a permanent basis, but they could just be hitting the heck out of that storage directly. And so your constraint there could end up being your I/O. And so in this instance, we have 2 meters for charging for storage because we understand that that'll ultimately impact the architecture that people will use in terms of developing their application. We also have SQL Azure. So SQL Azure is our relational database service. It's charged in terms of database per month increments. They do it based on the size of the database. The smallest size is called their Web Edition. It's a 1 gigabyte database that can now scale up to 5 gigs, $9.99 a month per 1 gig. And you can just basically multiply times 5 to get the price for the 5 gig version. And then we also have a Business Edition, which is at 10 gigs. We just announced, I think, at TechEd here, that they have just expanded the limit up to 50 gigs. That was based on a lot of feedback from customers since we launched back in the January timeframe. So it's super exciting that the SQL Azure folks were able to respond to that so quickly. We also have the App Fabric Service Bus and Access Control. You can think about access control as federated claims-based access control for REST-based web services. Those are charged based on a per operation, similar to the storage transaction. So it's basically like every time a request comes through, it's charged. And it's $1.99 per $100,000 $100,000. $1.99 per $100,000. $1.99 per 100,000 message operations. Service Bus provides loosely coupled connectivity between services and applications that cross firewalls or network boundaries. The Service Bus is charged on a per connection basis, and the base price is $3.99. They do have the opportunity to actually, or a customer does have the opportunity to actually buy in packs of connections, because oftentimes you want to have more than one connection open at a time. And there are definitely discounts according to be able to buy in 5 packs. These are the different instance sizes. We have 4 today, small, medium, large, and extra large. They pretty much scale linearly, not only as it relates to price, but also as it relates to capability. And the reason that we have different instance sizes is because the reality is different applications have different requirements. So if you have an application that requires a lot of RAM, then you might need to go and use an extra large instance size versus using a small. It's about being able to mix and match to obtain the optimal performance for your application. Oops. Come on. Hello. We also have data transfer or bandwidth. Today, Microsoft or Windows Azure has 6 different data center locations across the world. North America and Europe, in terms of its pricing, are the same. So $10 or 10 cents per gigabyte for ingress, 15 cents per gigabyte for egress. Asia Pacific is at 30 cents per gigabyte ingress and 45 cents per gigabyte egress. It's really important, though, that everybody understand we have a promotion that's in place. It was supposed to end at the end of June, but we've extended it to the end of October. And we basically do not charge for ingress, so basically transferring or transmitting data onto the Windows Azure platform during off-peak time frames. So this is a really super opportunity to be able to get deployed onto the platform at no cost, really, in terms of the bandwidth charges. Hello. We also just recently announced our content distribution network. What's exciting about this is that, so we have the 6 data center locations, but the reality is they are just 6 of them. And there's a lot of different areas of the world that are still not as reachable by those 6 data centers from a performance perspective. So the CDN allows you to get content that's of interest to your customers at locations that are much closer to them. So it really enhances performance of getting that data and that information out to them. We charge for CDN in a way that's very similar to our data transfer, our bandwidth charges, so it's still charged on a per gigabyte basis. 15 cents per gigabyte for egress in North America and Europe, but in Asia Pacific we're actually able to provide a lower price for CDN than we are for our regular bandwidth, down at 20 cents per gigabyte. Similar to our storage, we also do charge for transactions. Because again, here's a situation where the hotter content is, the more likely the constraining resource is actually going to be the I/O. It's actually available now, and there's no charge for usage during the month of June. And some other good tidbits of information is that it provides over 2 terabytes per second of capacity, and we have 20 global locations with an SLA of 99.95%. So let's go ahead and talk about our other service level agreements, because any cloud platform is only as good as it is available. So we have SLAs that are associated with each major service. We have compute connectivity. We actually have 2 SLAs for compute. One is connectivity itself. So is your service reachable at any given point in time? But what is unique about Windows Azure is that we also provide monitoring of a compute instance to make sure that it's healthy and in a running state. And so the SLA here is that we'll monitor it and we'll detect if an instance is not healthy, and then we'll initiate a restart within 2 minutes of detecting that it's not healthy. And we'll do that greater than 99.9% of the time. This is one area where, and I haven't talked a lot about it, and I'll talk about it in just a little bit, is the whole service management component of Windows Azure, where we abstract away a lot of the need to manage, actively manage the underlying infrastructure, because we do a lot of that work for you. And here's a good example of that, where we're just automatically monitoring and trying to take action to keep your service up and running. Storage availability, database, service bus, and access control. Really pretty much the same thing in the sense that it's about having the service up and available to you, and that your requests will be processed accurately and successfully. So let's talk a little bit about the value of service management. At the end of the day, it actually reduces some of the IT complexity. So when you think about deploying an application, it gives you less that you have to think about, which ultimately allows you to lower your operational costs. You can have your people focused on higher value activities in terms of making sure that the application is up and running. Automated service management also means that you don't have to worry about upgrades and patches. We take care of that for you. And then finally, it's really important that you think about the